A lot of people are scared of getting outside. They've never been outside. They've never been barefoot, but that's what Turtle Island is. It's a safe place.
Deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, there lives a man who has become a legend. You probably know him as Eustace Conway, the face of the History Channel's Mountain Men and a symbol of rugged self-reliance. For decades, he's shown the world how to survive, how to build a life from scratch, and how to live on your own terms. This is a man who built his world with his own two hands, a man who seems to fear nothing the natural world can throw at him. He's faced down freezing winters, battled the unforgiving land, and stared down predators. But the toughest challenges in life don't always come from the world outside. Often, they come from the quiet, vulnerable corners of the human heart. In 2017, Eustace Conway faced a challenge that no amount of wilderness skill could ever prepare him for. It wasn't a mountain lion or a blizzard, it was a quiet, devastating blow that struck at the very core of his life. This is the story of a profound and heartbreaking loss, a tragedy that would test the spirit of America's most famous mountain man in ways he never imagined. It's the story of how the toughest man on the mountain lost his closest friend and his other half. It's a story about the kind of grief that can bring even the strongest person to their knees, reminding us all that beneath the rugged exterior of a survivalist beats a human heart, just as fragile as any other. To really understand the weight of this tragedy, you first have to understand the man. Eustace Robinson Conway IV was born in 1961, and from a young age, he was different. While other kids were playing with toys, Eustace was drawn to the woods. At just 17, he made a choice that would define his life. He left home to live in a teepee, starting a lifelong quest for a more authentic, nature-based way of living. His life became a series of incredible feats. He hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. He crossed the United States on horseback, a journey that cemented his image as a modern-day pioneer. He founded Turtle Island Preserve, a 1,000-acre slice of wilderness in Boone, North Carolina, not just as his home, but as a place to teach others the old ways. His mission was simple: to teach, to inspire, and to live a life connected to the land. In 2012, the world got to know him through the History Channel series, Mountain Men. People were captivated by his raw, unfiltered approach to life. They watched him fell massive trees with an axe, mill the lumber by hand, and build magnificent structures using old-world techniques. He was the real deal. His rugged individualism and his passionate talks about nature and freedom earned him a huge following. To many, he was the last American man, a title given to him by author Elizabeth Gilbert in her biography of his life. But Eustace wasn't on this journey alone. For Eustace Conway, the person who stood beside him was Preston Roberts. Their friendship started back in 1982. They were two guys who shared a deep love for nature and a desire to live with purpose. If Eustace was the fiery, visionary force behind Turtle Island, Preston was its steady, grounding heart. He was an artist, a craftsman, a teacher, and an incredibly skilled builder. But more than anything, he was Eustace's best friend for over 35 years. On Mountain Men, their bond was obvious. That chemistry wasn't faked for TV, it was the real result of decades of shared struggles and triumphs. They were a perfect team. Where Eustace was often impulsive, Preston was methodical and patient. Viewers watched them work together seamlessly, their conversations flowing with the easy rhythm of two people who just got each other. Preston wasn't just a sidekick, he was a core part of Turtle Island. While Eustace is credited as the founder, Preston was an essential partner in its creation and mission from the early days. A gifted educator who worked as an art teacher for 25 years, twice named Teacher of the Year. He brought that same passion to the preserve, sharing his knowledge of knife-making and building with thousands of visitors. He believed in the mission with every fiber of his being. In a tribute, Turtle Island Preserve later described him perfectly: Preston was as practical as he was creative, and over any abyss he would find a way to build a bridge whose quality was matched only by its beauty. He was the man who could turn Eustace's grand, often chaotic ideas into beautiful, functional reality. He was the calm in Eustace's storm, their friendship was the bedrock Turtle Island was built on. It was a partnership forged in mud, sweat, and shared dreams. They had weathered countless storms together, both literal and metaphorical. Through it all, their bond was the one constant. Eustace himself would later say that Preston's loyal support was the best thing he ever had in his life. It was a brotherhood that seemed as enduring as the mountains they called home. But no one, not even these men of the mountains, could see the brutal winter that was about to descend. The year 2017 started like any other at Turtle Island Preserve. The rhythm of life continued, chopping wood, tending to animals, planning for the seasons ahead. Eustace and Preston were busy with their work on and off the screen for mountain men. Preston, a man who seemed carved from the forest itself, was teaching at a summer camp, his energy as infectious as ever. He was a picture of health and vitality. Then, everything changed. A shadow fell over the mountain. It began subtly, but soon it was clear something was terribly wrong. Preston fell ill, and his condition worsened with terrifying speed. The diagnosis was a large, inoperable tumor on his liver. The news hit like a shockwave, devastating his family and the tight-knit community at Turtle Island. For Eustace, it was a blow unlike any he'd ever known. This wasn't a threat he could fight with his strength or his wits. This was an invisible enemy consuming his best friend from the inside out. There was a profound and crushing sense of helplessness. The man who could solve any problem the wilderness threw at him was powerless against this silent disease. The decline was brutally fast. Within just 3 weeks of the diagnosis, the vibrant man who had been teaching children in the woods was gone. On July 24, 2017, Preston James Roberts passed away. He died peacefully, surrounded by his family, with his beloved wife, Kathleen, by his side. For the millions of Mountain Men fans, the news was a heartbreaking shock. Preston was a beloved figure, a gentle giant whose quiet wisdom and masterful skills made him a fan favorite. But for Eustace, it was an event that shattered the foundation of his world. In the days that followed, Eustace wrote a raw, moving tribute to his friend. He wrote, because Preston was such a giving, supportive person, he helped many thousands of students and friends, always improving their life. He spoke of Preston's character, stating, "I had never met a more genuine person than my best friend." In that tribute, Eustace also shared a story that captured his friend's gentle soul. He described how, when Preston's wife Kathleen was battling cancer, Preston put on a pink tutu in the middle of winter just to make her smile. Eustace wrote, "His plan worked. She smiled, and made it." Preston's love for Kathleen and good work knew no boundaries. This was the man the world had lost. A man of immense strength, but even greater love. The funeral was a final, somber journey through the land they both loved. In a scene that would be seared into the memories of all who saw it, Eustace Conway personally drove the horse-drawn wagon that carried his best friend's casket, a final act of service, a final journey together through the hills of Turtle Island. The man who had stood beside him for 35 years was gone. The steady hand, the wise counsel, the shared laughter, all silenced. For Eustace Conway, the world had fundamentally changed. The challenge was no longer about surviving the winter, it was about surviving the grief. The great tragedy had occurred, but the long, difficult aftermath was just beginning. After Preston Roberts' death, a heavy quiet settled over Turtle Island. The loss wasn't just emotional, it was practical. Preston had been the master builder, a lead educator, and the other half of the engine that made Turtle Island run. Without him, the workload was immense, and the path forward was unclear. The impact on Eustace was immediate and visible. Friends and viewers of Mountain Men noticed a stark change in him. The fire in his eyes seemed to have dimmed. The grief was a physical weight, a long shadow that followed him through his daily chores. As the show documented, Eustace struggled to get back to work, to find his footing in a world where his right-hand man was no longer there. The lumber business they ran together faltered. The intricate dance of their partnership was over. Now, Eustace was dancing alone, and the rhythm was gone. The emotional toll led many to wonder about his future. Would he continue with Mountain Men? Would he retreat from the public eye altogether? It was a fair question. Filming a reality show while navigating such a profound loss would be an unbearable weight for anyone. But Eustace is a man of deep conviction. He made the difficult decision to continue with the show, not as a way to move on from Preston, but as a way to move forward with him. He chose to honor his friend's legacy by continuing their life's work. Turtle Island Preserve became a living memorial to Preston Roberts. Every cabin built, every workshop held, was now a tribute to the man who had poured his heart into that land. Eustace channeled his grief into his work, finding a renewed purpose in ensuring their shared dream would not die with his friend. The community rallied. Friends and fans started a GoFundMe page that raised over $110,000 to support Preston's family with medical bills and home repairs, a testament to the impact he'd had on so many. In his honor, Turtle Island Preserve established the Preston Roberts Memorial Scholarship Fund, ensuring his passion for teaching children about nature would carry on. Eustace's journey through grief played out on Mountain Men for years following the tragedy. Viewers witnessed his struggle and his determination to persevere. His story became a powerful narrative of emotional endurance. He showed that true strength isn't about avoiding pain, but about facing it and carrying on. Though Eustace is no longer listed as a main cast member on the show as of recent seasons, his time after the loss proved that the most important structures they ever built were not made of wood, but of friendship and legacy, a foundation that even death could not demolish. The devastating loss of Preston Roberts was the most painful tragedy in Eustace Conway's life, but his life has been a series of battles. The grief over his friend's death landed in the middle of a life that was already a constant fight against forces trying to dismantle his work. For years, Eustace was locked in a grueling war with government bureaucracy. This came to a head in 2012, when officials from Watauga County declared that the handcrafted log buildings at Turtle Island were in violation of modern building codes. The very structures that were the heart of the preserve, built with time-honored techniques, were suddenly deemed illegal. The county issued an ultimatum: modernize the buildings or tear them down. Turtle Island, a sanctuary from the modern world, was being threatened by the very system it stood in contrast to. The preserve was shut down to the public, and its future was hanging by a thread. Eustace was outraged. He argued that applying modern codes to his primitive structures was absurd. "Have you ever heard of rock-solid foundation?" he exclaimed in frustration. "Where do you think that term comes from?" The fight was financially draining and emotionally exhausting. The battle got national attention, and eventually, the North Carolina General Assembly stepped in, passing a bill in 2013 that exempted primitive structures like his from state building codes. It was a huge victory, but the fight left scars. It wasn't the end, either. Soon after, Eustace was arrested for trespassing during a heated border dispute with a neighbor, continuing his entanglement with the legal system. These legal wars happened alongside the daily struggle of life off the grid. On Mountain Men, viewers saw these challenges firsthand. In one episode, his work truck, a critical lifeline for hauling lumber and supplies, was wrecked in a serious accident, threatening his entire operation. There were also personal injuries, the inevitable cost of a life of hard physical labor. On top of all this, a lien was placed on his land. This threat of foreclosure stemmed from a lawsuit years earlier and became a central drama in the early seasons of Mountain Men. All of these struggles, the legal battles, the financial stress, the physical dangers, were the backdrop to Preston's death. It was a storm of adversity, with the loss of his best friend striking like a lightning bolt in the middle of it all. This context makes his perseverance even more remarkable. Eustace wasn't just grieving, he was grieving while fighting for his land, his home, and his very way of life. The story of Eustace Conway is one of rugged individualism and a deep commitment to a life of principle. For years, people saw him as the ultimate survivor, a man who could conquer any challenge the wilderness threw his way. But the heartbreaking tragedy of his life reveals a deeper truth: the greatest mountains we ever have to climb are the ones inside our own hearts. the death of Preston Roberts was a seismic event that reshaped Eustace Conway's world. That single tragedy, compounded by years of relentless legal and financial battles, has forged a man who has been tested in every sense of the word, yet he endures. Eustace Conway's story didn't end with tragedy. It transformed into a powerful testament to human resilience. He continues his work at Turtle Island Preserve, his hands still calloused, his spirit still dedicated to the mission he and Preston started together. He carries the memory of his friend not as a burden, but as a torch, lighting the path forward. His life reminds us that even the strongest among us are vulnerable to the pain of loss, and that true strength is found in the courage to continue in spite of it. Eustace Conway, the mountain man, faced his greatest challenge not in a battle against nature, but in a quiet struggle with sorrow. And in choosing to honor his friend's life by continuing their work, he showed the world a powerful survival skill, the ability to find purpose in pain and to build a bridge of legacy over the abyss of loss. The heartbreaking tragedy of Eustace Conway is ultimately a story of the enduring power of friendship and the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit. The bond between Eustace Conway and Preston Roberts touched millions of people. If you were moved by their story, please consider sharing this video with other mountain men fans. And for more stories about the remarkable lives of people who choose to live on their own terms, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.